Hello. How are you? Is my mic hot? I need this one. Hello. There we are. You got a hot mic. Welcome to today. You're all my cousins. We're blood relatives, believe it or not. At least AJ tells me we've got 92 million others. So I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about what I talk to my family about all the time. Now, it happens to be a good day to do that because it's my birthday this week. A lot of us are having birthdays because there are 92 million of us. So I actually had a little party last night, and I wrote down some thoughts for my kids and for my wife and for the other relatives who were there. And I thought I'd share some of those ideas with you. Maybe even get some questions out there. So the reality is, of course, the biggest gift you can get in life are your relatives. We just don't realize sometimes that pretty much everyone is our relative. In fact, everybody is our relative. We'll figure that out over the next couple of years. Literally, we'll know exactly how everyone is related to everybody else. Our group is a pretty reasonable group, but it's not the largest group out there. And so family reunions as they go can get larger and larger. And the reason that's important is because life is sort of a scavenger hunt, right? Is that true for the kids? And we know we have a scavenger hunt going on here, but there's a good reason for that. Because in life, the scavenger hunt is about the clues for meaning, about what the heck we're doing here. Why is it all happening? What's the point? And the people in your life are actually the biggest clues. They give meaning to our lives. And when you realize that, and you get past all the mishigas and stuff that holds you back, you begin to appreciate in a very deep and profound way that if you can actually do the most generous thing possible, which is to give people time, to actually listen to them, you can actually make a big dent in your search, your desire to learn a little bit more about life. Now, how many of you read that Sheryl Sandberg piece on Facebook? Well, a fair number of folks. You don't have to read it. I know it can be a little heavy to think about someone who's lost someone dear to them. She lost her husband 30 days ago. But one of the big points she made was that, she says she aged 30 years in 30 days. That's how much it hurt her. But she gained 30 years of wisdom as well. And you learn a lot from people who have been in pain. I'm a heart surgeon. I deal with people in pain all the time. And I learn from them not just about how they're coping with the pain, but what have they taken from that experience they can translate to us, because maybe we can get there without having as much pain in our own lives. A lot of people die at age 25 and they're buried at 75. And we don't want to do that. And the whole point of talking with your family and having relatives you can connect with is that what allowed our species to survive is this wonderfully intricate social safety net we all present to each other. And nothing binds that more, literally like handcuffs, than being blood relatives. So it's sort of nice that AJ's put this together because now we got 92 million people we can rely on. And that pretty much means anyone they know is a friend of yours as well, and so on and so forth. Now, the problem, of course, is a lot of us spend our lives literally magnifying the faults of others. And I think we can do a little better than that. Because when we magnify the faults of others, we never actually take a mirror to our own souls, which is what this is all about. And if you can look inside yourself and start to figure out what it is that you're contributing or not doing that you could do, and everything in that cascade between the two, you begin to learn a lot about the things you should be focusing on. It helps you prioritize, and especially for young people who've got everything worked out, they think, and they're sort of going on in life, it's nice to reflect once in a while, and that's what families always did. They gave us wisdom because we could talk to the elders. These days, if you're 25, you're an elder, but most of us are, literally, if you're in this group right now looking at me and you're in pretty good shape, odds are you're going to live to age 100. So we have a lot of wisdom we're going to gain in our lives and a lot of wisdom that we can share. We want to make sure we do the best with that. So I'm going to give you a little test. I want you to do it as soon as I walk off the set, or you can frankly do it tonight or share it with your friends and do it then. Here's the test. It was actually something that I was given as a task the last day I was on the Oprah show. Now, I have a show on television, but before that, some of you may have forgotten, I actually used to do the Oprah show. And she was a great teacher. And the last day on that program, I was given a task. I was asked to go to 3 people who liked me a lot. That's important. They got to like you. 3 people who like you a lot. And you got to ask them, what is it about you that they like? And they only get one word to answer. Now think about that. They can say you're intelligent or loving, caring, soulful, passionate, insightful. It doesn't matter. Whatever word it is that they use to describe you, collect those 3 words, and then figure. You want 3 because it might be a tie otherwise. You want 3 words and figure out who you really are, because whatever word that is, that's who you really seem to be to the people who care about you. And then when we go down this path sometimes of beating ourselves up, you can reflect on the fact that people who like you because of that. Now, I'll tell you what the answer is for me. I asked 3 people, I got 3 identical answers. Passion. I make lots of mistakes. I'm not the smartest guy around. My wife tells me that anyway. In my house, the prosecution never rests. But there are, without question, some things that all of us reflect back on and realize actually define who we are. And for me, the word passion came to mind. That's a little homework assignment you guys can do. You can text out right now and ask 3 friends to define you in one word. But I encourage you to do that because it might help you with this exercise to simplify some of the things I'm about to say to you. So the question then becomes, if the word you hear back is not the word you want to be, and you want to make a change, how do you do it? Well, the first thing we got to figure out is, why don't we change? We don't change because we don't have enough time. At least we say we don't. But you make times for things that are important, like video games. You make time for things that you think are going to come back and help you down the road. And most of us don't realize the most important thing that will help you is that fundamental ability to change, to become the person you want to be the change you want to see in the world, as Gandhi would say. And the opportunity for us is to go back and examine some of those assumptions about why we don't change. Now, the other reason we don't change is we don't have money. Sometimes the things you want to do require lots of cash, and you don't have it. I get that. I understand that. That's actually the least important reason to not change, because most change happens inside of you. And the reason to change, the reason to care about your body, the reason I do my show and talk about health all the time is because if you can change what's going on in your body, if you can change what's happening in here, you can change the world outside of it. That's why we started Health Corps. That's like Kids Foundation. It goes all over the country and teaches kids about how to be healthy. It's not about getting people to eat better and exercise a little more. It's about realizing you change yourself, you change the world just by doing that. And if you can't change yourself, it's really hard to make a difference outside of yourself. So those are reasons not to change. But the most important one is we fear we'll fail when we try to change. That's a problem, because if you fail when you try to change, you fear people won't love you anymore. And when you don't feel loved, that's spiritual death. No one wants that. So the good news is, once you figure out that you can get past that and embrace your fear of failure, because people will still love you because you did try. They won't dislike you because you failed. They'll love you because you gave it your best shot, because our whole lives are about trying our hardest and not making it. And those are the keys to getting people to change. And I see that day in and day out. And the question is, once you figure out that you're actually going to change, how do you do it? What do you do? I'm going to give you 2 tips right now. They're going to come back to help you. Write these down. These are really important. Tip number 1, people do not change based on what they know. They change based on what they feel. What they feel. Think about that. Think about someone you love dearly that you can't change. The reason you can't change them is you're telling them facts. For example, don't smoke. Frankly, if you smoke and someone tells you not to smoke because it's bad for you, you know what you do? You say, well, geez, I sort of knew that already. And now I'm really incompetent that I couldn't stop doing something that everyone knows is bad for me. And once you get past that, you go out and smoke to relax because you feel so bad about yourself. So the great opportunity here is not to use facts to change people, but to use your heart. Get out of your head, where knowledge is, and move down to that visceral, deep, soulful awareness of why it matters and why you need to show up in your own life. That usually comes back to family. Number 1 way I get people who are going for heart surgery to change, for example, to stop smoking, is I bring their families in. And I say, look at it around the room. These people all love you. All I want you to do is to love yourself. And if you can love yourself as much as the people in the room here with you do, you're going to stop smoking. Now, apply that to everything. If someone that you love dearly was putting in their mouth what you're putting in your mouth, what would you tell them? People who eat too much should use that tactic. It applies, frankly, to work problems, issues across the board with other addictions. And it's a different way of thinking about it. So again, tip number 1, if people don't change based on what they know, they change based on how they feel. Tip number 2 is you got to make it easy to do the right thing. That's really important. If you don't make it easy to do the right thing, then ultimately it's homework, and you're not going to want to do that for very long. So the best thing to do is to move beyond that. Figure out ways of automating your life so the easy things happen elegantly. And things that you don't want to do, that aren't good for you, become hard to do. A good example, when you first open your fridge, if you're seeing soft drinks, junk food, fried stuff, well, you're going to eat that stuff. If you open the fridge and all you see in there is stuff that's good for you, and you hid in the produce drawer all the bad stuff so you don't see it, guess what? You don't go there as quickly. That's your backup system. Your primary place to go ends up being a healthier choice. I've got 4 kids. I know what it's like to get kids to eat healthy. And the number 1 thing we did in our house is we put water on the counter, and in the water, we put cut fruits so they make it look attractive, get a little taste to it that way. It doesn't taste boring. And we don't put any soft drinks in the house. There's none there. There's no option. If you're thirsty, you're going to drink what's there. And those simple little things begin to, again, simplify life so it makes it easy to do the right thing. Those are simple, elegant ways to make it easier to change. Now, I'm going to give you 5 life adjustments, 5 things that are going to change the way you think about your lives. These 5 things are really important because they drive most of how we age. Now, although we're all cousins, the cycle of life means as we get older, some of us aren't going to do things right. These are the 5 things our cousins tend to do wrong. First off, we don't watch things like our blood pressure. That's the #1 cause of aging, by the way. Why is that? Because it's like a fire hydrant squirting all over your body, scraping off the delicate lining, the Teflon thin lining of our arteries. And when those arteries get scraped up, your arteries have to heal themselves with plaque. That's why we get things like heart attacks and strokes. Those are the main reasons we die. Simple to deal with if we avoid the risk factors, blood pressure being #1. You can go get it checked anywhere, probably here as well. Any mall does it. It's free, it's simple, it's easy. It's a good parlor trick, by the way. Next time you have a party, buy one of those little wrist blood pressure cuffs, and you won't, you pretty simply get everyone's blood pressure in the party. It'll liven up the conversation a little bit. Secondly, you want to eat food that's not good for you. Heard it here first. Eat food that actually tastes fantastic, that happens to be good for you. If you eat food that's good for you and it tastes like cardboard, and you're thinking about it in terms of only the fact that it's good for you, you're going to get bored. But you buy food that tastes great and happens to be good for you, you'll eat that the rest of your life. That's called a program that's going to work for a long time. I talked about addictions. They're the 3rd thing. And the focus on addictions has to be more on the emotional parts of it. Stress is #4. And the problem with stress is we don't really understand how pervasive it is. If you have a big belly, I can guarantee you've got a stress problem. Big bellies always cause stress problems because that's what happened to our ancestors. See, when our relatives, 10,000 years ago, when there weren't 92 million of us, but there are actually more like 5 million of us maybe, when they were wandering around the savannah of North Africa or up in Northern Europe, their problem with stress wasn't a deadline. What caused chronic stress was not enough food. They literally didn't have enough food, so they would turn on these hormones so they'd eat anything they could find, anything. And then they'd make sure they stored those calories as fat in the belly, because belly fat you can use if you're starving. That's really good to know, because it turns out that chronic stress stimulates a hormone called cannabinoid. Now, how many of you smoke pot? I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, kidding. Relatives. Ugh. When you smoke pot, if a friend of yours smokes pot, what happens is they turn on the munchies, right? The munchies are caused by these hormones called cannabinoids. And those hormones are the same hormones that were designed not to smoke pot. They were designed to allow us to eat more when we actually were starving on the tundra. And so it's a simple system, but in the modern world, when chronic stress is not famine, but simple things like a fight at work or issue with a relationship, that same chronic stress causes you issues that pull you back from what you want to do in life and hormonally drive you to eat the wrong things and then store that fat in the wrong place. That's why stress is important. Listen, driving over here, I got stuck on the Cross Bronx, and someone cut me off, and I got angry. That's stressful. But anger isn't the issue. Anger actually isn't the problem. Wishing that guy would die, that's the problem. Because that hostility separates me. You see, we are really all family. And if I feel like I'm not a raindrop falling into the ocean of my relatives here, then I feel isolated. And that isolation breeds a deep, soulful discontent that results in stress that we can't really keep up with. And those are the kinds of observations that caused us to do things that really aren't in our best interest. So I covered 4. The 5th lifestyle tip is activity, like those kids over there dancing, which is why don't you do it a little bit? The interesting thing about activity is you don't need very much. They just finished a 1,000,000 women study analysis. You know why they call it a 1,000,000 women study? They have 1,000,000 women in it. That's right. That's very well done. Very insightful name. So the 1,000,000 women study looked at 1,000,000 women in the UK and showed that if they just get 10 minutes of activity every other day, did you hear me? 10 minutes every other day. It's nothing. 10 minutes every other day gets them such a huge advantage over nothing. So the distance you have to travel is not very far to find health through activity. Now, yes, I'd rather you get half an hour a day. It's better. I like to do that if I can. I think you should. However, 10 minutes a day is the minimum you should do to think that you're taking care of your family genes, because you got to pass these important genes that all of us share onto our offspring so we become the #1 family. We want to beat the other families. Is that right, AJ? All right, so let me turn to one last little theme. There are a couple tips that come back over and over again to help us. One big issue is the need to forgive ourselves. And we don't do it well. You know, when you're driving along, back to my driving metaphor, and you miss your turn, guess what? When you miss your turn, your GPS does not berate you, doesn't beat you up. Your GPS says, shh, guy, at the next available turn, make a U-turn. Don't be a schmuck. Just get back on the road again. And I think that's how we need to think about the mistakes we make. Most of the healthy decisions we make are going to be ones that we fail on periodically, because life is not a wind sprint, it's a marathon. And so to recognize that and to appreciate that the biggest thing you need to figure out is a lifestyle that you can make mistakes with and get back on the train immediately once you've fallen off, that's what you want. So the ability to make a U-turn, which is what I call it, becomes important. Let me leave you with one last thought, because at its very core, the way to live a long, healthy, good life and take our genes on is to give our heart a reason to keep beating. And we don't do it sometimes because we don't put all the things that we're struggling with in a deeper perspective. I gave an introduction this week to Elie Wiesel. How many of you know Elie Wiesel? You all fantastic. So Elie Wiesel, a Nobel laureate, was in concentration camps in the Second World War. Didn't even write about it for 10 years because he was so scarred by the event. And his favorite quote, and I have adored his work forever, but his favorite quote to me was that the opposite of love is not hate. Think about that. The opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. It's indifference. Now, why is that so important? None of us here think we hate. None of us here think we're doing bad stuff. Most people don't. If they do, they defend it to themselves because no one's a jerk on purpose, right? If we're a jerk, we don't realize we're being a jerk usually. But if you are indifferent to the suffering of others, if you're indifferent to your family and the fact that they're having pain, if you're not giving them a little time that becomes important just as a gift back to them because they need you at that moment, then you actually are doing the opposite of love. So think about it in that text and figure out, how am I going to make a difference and not be indifferent to things that I know I can impact on. I've adored being with my cousins today. I wish you all the best. I want to ask someone to come over here and get one photo over my shoulder. If I get one of those photographers over there. Cheryl, I'm going to get someone back. I want you guys to cluster up here a little bit. Let's get a team photo, because I'm going to wonder what it's like to have all you guys in my life. I'm going to stand right in front, and I'm going to post it up. We've got about 10 million people on Facebook and Twitter. I'll post it up that you can find yourselves all in the family tree, and then send the word out. We want the rest of our cousins to know that life is here. Cheryl, if we have our other photographers and get them up here, we can get multiple if you want. All right, I'm gonna get down here and pose with you guys. You ready? We can get one of our cameras up here behind. I'm gonna sneak down. If I fall off, catch me, cousins. You will catch you. It's like a mosh pit back here. All right, here we go. Can you see my cousins? Now, cousins, wave your hands. Woo! You can make more noise than that. Woo! They're great cousins. Guys, I love you all. Take care.